So this is something that's been top of mind for me since at Microsoft recently we did our Connect period. And for those of you that aren't at Microsoft, this is just a period where I can work with my employees to be reviewing the progress they've made over the past period. It's not quite like a performance review, but it kind of ties into that type of discussion. So one of the areas that I was thinking about for all of my employees, and I had an experience recently I'll touch on, is this idea that as software engineers, right, when we're thinking about different ways that we can go tackle problems and the solutions we want to put in place, we can fall into this trap of sort of when solutions are put in front of us, we just start shutting them down. We start looking at all the reasons why this particular solution will not work. And while I do believe that doing an analysis like that is important, that you can identify where things will not work properly, if you only focus on that, you ultimately never get to a solution that will work, right? You're only looking at the negative. So this is an important thing. I very much believe in this, especially as you're becoming more senior as a software engineer. But the more recent example I had is when we're talking about planning and kind of going through the different ideas from the team or other teams and hearing about the different ways we want to push things forward. I've been noticing that when I'm responding to some different discussions, like I need to be careful that I'm also not doing this. As in, I don't want to be dismissing ideas. And I want to make sure that I'm being inclusive and trying to move forward in the spirit of what someone's proposing. So there's been a couple instances, even for myself recently, where this has been a bit of a, I wouldn't say an issue, but I've caught myself going, okay, I've identified the negative pieces, like the risks or the concerns I have, but what else should I do? So I wanted to talk a little bit more about this. Now, to kind of circle back on the thing I just mentioned, when you're only focused on part of the analysis where you're looking at the part of the solution that you want to address the concerns for, this is good, right? Like you want to be able to call that out, or else what we would all be doing is like vigorously agreeing with each other. It would be, one, two, or three solutions are put forward, and it's like, yeah, we should just go do all these things, and we would just do them if we only saw a positive benefit. So we do need to be realistic and try to look at both sides when we're doing an analysis as software engineers. We need to look at pros and cons of everything. So when we're identifying the cons, it is very important. You do want to make sure you're doing that. You're calling out risks. And part of that too is that you as a software engineer talking with another software engineer, you might have some concerns about something that they've totally missed, right? If you're a more senior software engineer, you might have some experiences with this particular type of solution, technology. You might have seen the scenario before. And it's good because if you don't bring this up, the other person might not have seen that, and it's some context information you can share with them. So I go through this. I don't want to say, no, you should never like talk about the negative pieces. You absolutely should. It's pros and cons. But that's just it. It's pros and cons. You need the pros as well. So every solution that you're looking at will have both, right? It's equally as dangerous to be, only listing out cons of something as it is to be only listing pros of something, right? If you have people that are pushing different designs and they can't for themselves point out to you anything that's negative about it, there's no cons and it's only pros, like it's just not true. They have not done a full analysis if they can't call out any single con. And I would kind of flip it around and say the same thing, right? So when you are doing an analysis, right, and maybe reviewing someone's proposal for something, if you're only focused on the negatives, it does not help move forward to a solution on its own, right? You might be able to call out enough risks with a particular solution, but you cannot stop there. So this is something that I'm trying to encourage more, especially more senior software engineers. And as I mentioned, even for myself, trying to hold myself accountable that when you're calling out these concerns for different designs, you want to pause and reflect and say, well, what's the spirit of what this solution is trying to solve? Like, what are we trying to offer up for our infrastructure? What are our partner teams asking for, our customers? Like, what are we trying to do for them? What's the goal, right? And if we start thinking about the goal, we might be able to say for this particular solution, yes, here are some of the concerns I have. Here's why I have these concerns. Good. Press pause, right? And now you want to say, but in my head, you're thinking through, well, if this is the goal, like, okay, well, part of the solution does actually help address that. Maybe let's focus on that. And if you start going through the different cons that were brought up, can you start thinking of alternatives that you might propose for those things, right? So instead of just stopping at the this won't work, we can't do this, cool, you want to keep going and saying these things might not work, I have concerns, but what about these alternatives? This in turn will keep the conversation going. It allows the other side, other engineers, to be able to kind of do the same thing back with you. And ultimately, you do need everyone kind of coming together with pros and cons so that you can come up with a collaborative solution. So I won't kind of drag this on any longer. I'll keep it pretty short, but I just wanted to remind folks, especially as you're becoming more senior as a software engineer, that you do want to focus on trying to drive forward solutions while you are calling out some of the risks that you see with them. So thanks for watching. Small tip. I hope this is helpful, just something to keep in mind, and we'll see you next time.